Please be advised this program contains content that may be distressing to some listeners, including discussion of domestic violence. If you or someone you love needs support, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text BEGIN to 88788. This is Naomi Ackerman, coming to you from the Advot office in Los Angeles, California. Advot is a local nonprofit that uses the arts to empower youth to find their voice. With Advot, I have spent almost 2 decades working inside the walls of the Los Angeles juvenile lockup facilities, or Juvie, as we call it in slang. When I started this work, I drove to a juvenile lockup facility every Thursday. I would teach what we call the ripple process. The ripple process is the foundation of Advot's lessons. We use the art to teach healthy communication skills and show our youth how to create a positive ripple effect in their life. Today, Advot teaches over a dozen classes at multiple sites throughout LA County. I have had the privilege of meeting the most extraordinary youth inside the walls. Thursdays in Juvie tells the story of where it started and where they are now. First, I'll share a story about my experience teaching at the lockup facility where it all began. Then, we'll hear from a former Advot student or someone who was system impacted and has turned their life around in an inspiring way. I invite you to grab a coffee or a tea, take a walk, and listen. Listen to the voices of these beautiful young people. I am so happy you chose to join us today to experience the power of love, redemption, and change. This is Thursdays in Juvie, and now, the show. The gang offers a false sense of family and security. We all yearn to belong, be loved, and feel seen. Time and time again, I witness the power of simply being present and offering love to the youth we serve. The youth repeatedly tell me how invisible they feel and how no one cares or sees them. At an Advot event, one youth read a poem they'd written and they received a standing ovation. Afterwards, they asked me, "Miss, who are all these people who came to the event? Who are these people that fucking stood up when I read my poem?" I laughed. "These are people who follow our work and care about you," I tell her. "No shit," they reply. "Yes shit," I answered with a smile. "It's like I have a whole village that's mine and they came to see me. That's dope." Ah, how we all need a village to cheer us on, accept us, and remind us that we matter. What would happen if we all worked harder to be a village for one another? Mommy. As we were driving home from school, a fight broke out in the car over my and my oldest daughter's phone. My middle daughter and the youngest were yelling. Somehow they worked it out and stopped. It got quiet. And then my youngest one asked, "Do they have phones in Juvie, Ima?" "What?" I said. Not sure I heard her right. I wondered if it's good that my 11, 9, and 7-year-old daughters were so connected to my work. They always ask and beg me to take them with me to Juvie. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I was sure that I was losing parenting points somewhere over this. "Do they have phones in Juvie?" she asked again. "Well," I answered, "no, they're not allowed cell phones or any electronic devices." "Oh no," she said. "How do they talk to their mommies?" I smiled. Her little voice, so innocent, sweet, touched something deep inside me. "Ima, how do they talk to their mommies?" Mommy, not mom, not mother, but mommy. I called my mother Mommy until the day she died. I was in my late 30s. I never, never heard one of my juvie kids call their mom, Mommy. Not in their writing, not in the improv exercises, anywhere, ever. I thought to myself how the word mommy meant so much more than just mom. When my daughters want to annoy me, they call me mother with a British accent for extra flair. But mommy? Well, mommy is something different. We all need a mommy to call, to cry to, a mommy to give us unconditional love, a mommy to fix the broken, to kiss the forehead or the knee. This is at the heart of the issue with my juvie girls, the lack of a mommy, the lack of guidance, the lack of unconditional love. Not that people don't take a wrong turn even when a mommy is present, because even the best of mommies don't have all the power. And even the best of mommy's children fail, trip, and go astray. I have 3 girls at home and dozens more in juvie. I try to be the mommy. It is a daily challenge, sometimes a battle. There are days when I feel so far from being the mom I want to be, the mom I imagine is the best mom. You know, that mom who doesn't really exist except in my imagination. And then I had a moment after dropping my kids off at home. I headed to juvie to start a new group. And when I got back home, it was late, and my daughters were already in bed. I went to each one of them, kissed them goodnight, and lingered with my oldest, who was still awake. "How was it, Ima?" she asked. "Great," I replied. "Do you have a good new group?" I was surprised that my distant middle schooler remembered that I had started a new round of girls that day. "Yes," I said. "Yeah, I did. I had a great group." "That's good," she said. "It's funny, Ima. You're kind of like their mom, right?" "No," I thought. "I'm kind of like their mommy." "Yeah," I said. "I guess I'm kind of like their mom, a little." I held my own child close and silently prayed that my girls in juvie fell asleep that night, also felt some mommy love, my love. Stay tuned for an interview with a system-impacted individual who's turned their life around in the most inspiring way. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to receive notifications about new shows. Join the Advot Ripple. Contribute at www.advot.org. Hi, Christy. We are continuing the conversation of Thursdays in Juvie with my beloved, beautiful, amazing colleague and friend, Christy Stillwell. She is still very well.
There you go.
I'm really excited to have you here with me today because your story is a success story and a story that inspires me. Thursdays in Juvie is about storytelling and telling the stories of the young women that I met at the LA County lockup facility, sharing their story with my story, and now reflecting on your story. So can you give us, I know you have many, many parts of your story. It's a very illustrious and beautiful and big story. Take 5 minutes and share with our listeners your journey, how you got to where you are and where you came from. And you get to choose the highlights of it.
First of all, let me say you're very flattering. Thank you for the goes. So my name's Christy Stillwell. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I had both my parents. They were workaholics and alcoholics. So nobody was ever home. My mother worked nights. My father worked during the day. And even when he was home, he wasn't home. So I am a product of the streets. I was born or raised by the streets, not born, but raised. So my journey started off with, just not coming home late at night, getting involved in gangs, running the streets. Then I met him and my life changed. It went from still running the streets, going out with him and his friends and my friends getting together and, double dating, group dating, hanging out, drinking, smoking weed, getting high. And then it progressed into, why are you looking at my friend? Why are you even talking to my friend? So it started, the domestic violence started coming. And at first I didn't realize it. It was more of, oh, but he loves me because he doesn't want me to talk to anybody. He doesn't want me to talk to his friends. He doesn't want me to have any friends. He wants to keep me to himself. And I was naive. I was young. I was 16 years old, going on 17. And the hitting started. Well, I ended up pregnant. And then I moved in with his family. And then that's when the hitting started and the domestic violence journey began. And all I wanted was that family because I'm already pregnant and then you are raised to not leave. You're raised to stick it through. That's your husband. You're having a child together. Taking it back a little bit, while I was running the streets, I started getting high. Before I met him. So I was already smoking PCP, doing a little bit of coke, things like that. And then we met and I ended up pregnant. So I couldn't do those things anymore. I stopped. I was abstinent for a while. And he picked up those habits and he started using and smoking. After I had my first child, right away I got pregnant again with my second child. So they're only a year and 3 months apart. And the beatings kept getting worse and worse. Now I'm talking to his brother because we live in a household with his, family. So now I'm talking to his brothers and he's like, why are you talking to my brothers? And so he got very jealous over that. And so he would beat me. There were many nights he played Russian roulette. It was just a very ugly scene. And my mom knew, but I never told her. It's like I thought I was hiding it from her, like the good little... the girl that I am, like I'm hiding it, like nobody knows my business, but you could see it all over my face. So she would tell me, leave him. And I'd be like, no, things are okay. Things are okay. Things are going to get better once we move into our own place. So I pushed for my mom and dad to rent me their house because they were living with my grandmother at the time. She got sick, so somebody had to take care of her. And it progressed and progressed. My daughters are now 3 and 4. And the violence it's going chaotic. There's all kinds of chaos, trauma I'm putting my kids through. I finally got a job and I started growing up at this job. I started seeing how other people lived and realizing this isn't way people, this isn't love. This isn't normal. And I would talk to my supervisor and it was funny because he was this white guy and he'd always go surfing and he's kind of like, hey, dude, and that was total opposite of me. I grew from the streets. I'm a gang member. We don't hey, dude people. And he would tell me, he would try to convince me, leave. And I remember one weekend we went to my husband's house and his mom's house. And I was making chorizo and egg for breakfast. And he reached over and he was picking at the egg. And I told him, hey, dude, you're going to eat, raw egg. And the next thing I know, he looked over to his left, he looked over to his right, and he just pulled back and he cold cocked me. I was out on the floor for at least a good 5 minutes. They said they couldn't wake me up. They were trying to wake me up. And as soon as they did get me up, they pushed me out the door. They took my kids and they were pushing me out the door to the car. And I think that day was like my eye opener that just because I said a word, I'm getting beat down, and that's not normal. So that's when the change started coming. And I say that for the domestic violence because that's when I realized I needed to leave because he was going to kill me. There's many times that he played Russian roulette. And I had black eyes, I had a broken nose, I had a fractured jaw, all these things like the old cars that used to have the antennas on them, the radio antennas. He used to whip me with those. And his mom would tell me all the time, Christy, leave, just leave. And I never did because for whatever stupid thought I had in my head that we could be a normal family. I never did. But for some reason, this night or this morning made me realize that things were not going to change. Things were not going to get better. And so I left. And we separated. He would come. He'd break into my house. My mom was there. I went out one night. My mom was there taking care of the kids. And he came to the door and tried to, like, arm wrestle her, get real, like, possessive over her. She got a frying pan and she told him, come in this house and I'll hit you with it. My mom was a very strong woman. And I think he broke me down because I used to be very strong, but then he kind of broke me down towards, in the beginning. And I don't think we realize that as women, we're strong, but then somebody comes into your life and we love them and we let them break us down. And I realized that today that he broke me down. And so I'm still working, and I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she's like, what happened? Why don't you guys get back together? The kids, you guys are married, make it work. You can do something, just talk to him. And here I go again, all right, I'll give it a chance. So I told him, come over for spaghetti. I'll make spaghetti for us. You guys bring him, his sister and her husband. So they came over, and again, she said, well, what happened? And I told her, and he heard me, and he grabbed the pot of spaghetti and he threw it at me and threw it all over the kitchen. And I said, this is it. I got my kids. I ran across the street and I told her, get them out of my house, get them out of my house. Remember, this is my mom and dad's house, so I wasn't going nowhere. And so she did. She got him out, and then I left. I left, and I never looked back. But one thing, back then, we really didn't have anything for domestic violence. At least I didn't know of anything for domestic violence. So I got very angry. I got very bitter. I got very hateful. And so I started using again. I picked up where I left off. And my drug of choice just took over me. And I started getting high, ran back to, I'm living in my neighborhood. So I'm back to the streets. I'm recruiting girls. I'm doing the most, I remember being at the house and some of the girls would come over and we'd be getting high and they'd be like, oh, Christy, I'm sorry. I didn't know that this was going on. And I'd be like, F this person, he didn't break me. Like, I'm still here. Like, I'm, the anger, just so much anger built up in me and that I couldn't control. So I started taking out on my community, The community got really ugly. I got really ugly. And it was the bitterness, the whole kind of just a disgrace within myself that I let this happen, the guilt and shame that I carried, that I let this happen. And I was still working. I was still doing good and everything. But what happened was, I wasn't in a relationship for many years. I ran amok. I ran the streets. I sold drugs. I was doing drugs. People would come over to my house. It was like a party house. We would go to the club. I started working at clubs as a waitress. And so people would come over to my house and then we'd make it into a party. We'd start after hours, start playing darts. There was drugs at the house, everything. And I met somebody and we started talking and we became friends before anything because he was going through a separation. And we weren't even looking at each other in that manner. This has been years since I've been separated from my ex-husband. But I never got that work I needed. I never got that therapy. I never got that, group support. I never really got, I went straight to anger. So I really never did any other work on myself. And so, I was using for a long time, PCP, meth, whatever crossed my way. I would pick it up or I would try it. One thing about me, I'm not a needle person, so I could not do that. Like,
that's good.
It was funny because when they first got diagnosed with diabetes, they told me I had to take insulin. I cried for hours before I would let my daughter give me the shot. Like, I was scared. I'd be like, no. Like, no, I'm not a needle person. And it's funny, I have tattoos, but taken it back. Like I was working at the clubs and stuff. So this guy that we were talking, we were becoming friends. He's like, hey, we did start dating, and he said, hey, I'm going to move to Arizona. He said, will you come with me? Like, will you get away? He goes, I'll send for you. I'm going to go live with my cousin, my aunt and uncle, and then I'll make money and we'll get an apartment. Would you, come, bring the girls, blah, blah, blah. And I said, sure. I guess I really didn't think it was going to happen, but, throughout the year, he finally, came and was able to get me an apartment. And time came, my mom's like, don't take the girls, leave them here. You don't know anything about Arizona. You don't even know if it's going to work. You don't even know how this person's going to react with you. And to me, it sounded good. It was right. It was the right thing to do. So I left the kids with my mom and sister, and I moved to Arizona. But before that, we were having a going away ceremony for me at the club. And that night, it was really strange because I had people at my house the night before, and they're all like, yeah, we're going to go to the club. We're going to celebrate you, your goodbye party, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. So they said, come with me. We want to take you out to breakfast. One of the guys goes, I want to take you out to breakfast. And I said, okay. So during the day, all these things started happening, and it was kind of weird. There was 3 of us. There was like 6 of us that ran around together. But there was 3 of us that were from the same neighborhood that really ran around together. The other 3 were different neighborhood people, but the common line between us is we all got high together. And so when you put drugs in a room, you're not enemies no more. You're friends, right? Because the drugs bring you together. And so that, they kept us away from each other that whole day. And it was just weird. So that night I finally got home that evening, and one of my friends came, and she's like, oh yeah, let's smoke a frio, and then I'll go pick up my friend, I don't want to say her name, but I'll go pick her up, and then, we'll come back. I said, all right. So we smoked, and then she said, well, go with me. And she kept in about going with her. And I almost did. I was so close of staying in the car saying, let's go. But, the lady that was living with me, she's like, come on, you got to get ready. You got to take a shower. They're going to come and pick you up. You're not going to be ready. And so I listened to her, and I went. And God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. By that woman coming out on the porch, she saved my life. My friend that I was always with, in her convertible, took off to go pick up our other friend. And when she got there, they got in the car, and I guess there was some guys walking by. And one of the guys recognized the girl that was sitting in the shotgun, sitting in the front seat on the passenger side, and took out a sawed-off shotgun and shot her face off. And then the other girl got shot in the head. And I just remember getting out of the shower that night. And this is before I moved to Arizona. This is one of the reasons why I literally left Arizona. I got out of the shower and my phone was ringing. Back then we had house phones. And so I answered the phone, and there was somebody on the other end in a panic. Oh my God, Christy, is this you? Christy, is it you? And they're yelling and screaming. Oh my God, tell me it's you. Blue Eyes, is it you? And I was like, who is this? I couldn't figure out who it was. Well, I finally recognized who the voice was. And I said, is this you? And he goes, yes, I gotta go. The cops are coming. They shot her. We can't tell who she is. We thought it was you. Her face is gone. And so I was like, what are you talking about? I go, Trisha. And he goes, yes, it was Trisha. And I don't know who the other, they didn't know who the passenger was, but I knew who it was. And so I was like, oh my God. So right when I hung up, one of the guys from the 3 of us, that girl Trisha was one of the 3. So the third guy that we hung around, he came in. He's like, are you going tonight? I'm like, you gotta take me. Juan, we gotta go over to the apartments. We gotta go to the apartment. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, I don't know. They shot up Trisha's car. Like Trisha, they said that she's dead. Like her face is gone. So we go over to the street, and the car's there, and they have Trisha in the ambulance. But the girl that's in the front seat, she's, draped with a blanket, a sheet. And she passed. And, I always think of that day because that could have been me. That was supposed to be me. Not that I was involved, like, in whatever they happened. I mean, I find out years down the line that she burned somebody, and so they had it for her. But I could have been that person because I usually drove Trisha around.
So hold on. First of all, you know how you know someone, but you don't know them, and then you hear their story. So you have such a long and amazing story to tell. And I'm going to take a pause for a second because I know that then you moved to, thank God that you weren't in that car. And thank God that you moved to Arizona and your life dramatically changed. And then there's a whole bunch of stories that come after that on how you got involved at Homeboy Industries. But I have some other questions that I want to ask you. So we're going to probably have to have you back because there's so many more chapters of the story, but we'll end this chapter where you left for Arizona. And we're going to have to remember to come back to that story. We have and I'm going to bring us kind of back to now because you have such a strong and important voice. And you've taken your experiences of using drugs, of domestic violence, and now you are such an advocate and such a helper to people who are in your situation. We have a exercise that we do with the incarcerated youth, and we call it a 6-word novel. And if you could sum your life, which clearly we need 10 hours to talk about, into 6 words. 6 words, and you can count them, 6 words. You know, what would those 6 words be? We heard one small chapter of your life, there's so many more. I feel like we heard the first chapter, because then there was Arizona, then you came back to LA. You started working for Homeboy Industries. You teach anger management, which is where we met. But let's pause there and tell me in 6 words. 6 words, and you can count them if you had to tell your story.
Resilience, peace, and I'm not going to say them in order. Blessed, in awe. That's not a word, but
it's 2 words, in awe.
In awe. And challenged.
Challenged, love it. So let's repeat that. We had resilience, peace, in awe.
In awe.
Blessed. And challenged.
And challenged.
I love that. Thank you. That's amazing. So at Advot, we teach that your voice is your power. You have an incredible voice. I see you use it every day. Who would you say was the person who inspired you to have your voice? Who inspired you? Because you have a great story and an important story. Who inspired you to use your voice?
Well, my mother inspired me with, because she's always been a strong woman. So I think I get that strength from her. My sponsors inspired me to use my voice because when you go through domestic violence or you go through anything like this, we stuff our stories. We don't want people to know our shame or our guilt or what's happened to us, our trauma, right? It's hard to talk about. So my sponsor taught me that to share your story is to give it less power, right? It doesn't own you anymore. Your trauma, your shame, your guilt, those things don't own you no more. So to talk about it is to heal from it. And I think that's where I get a lot of it from is my recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. My sponsors and the women that I surround myself with today, they're very strong women that we've all gone through, different types of trauma. And we've all been able to walk through it.
I love that. So the format of the podcast is that I share a story that I used to write this blog that was called Thursdays in Juvie. And I would tell a story of the girls that I met in the LA County lockup facility. And I tell the story and then I interview someone who's inspired me, who I think their story is important. And the story that I read before you came on is called Mommy. And it's really about so many of the girls that I met don't have the mommy figure in their life. So it sounds like you did have a mommy figure that was, or maybe not, I don't know.
I had her, but I didn't have her. Because again, at the beginning of my story, she was a workaholic. She it's funny because it relates back to my grandmother. My grandmother lost her mother at a very young age. So she was raised like in a not foster care, but with aunts and uncles that really didn't have that bond, that motherly bond with her. So when my grandmother had my mom and my aunt, she didn't know how to have that motherly bond either. And I think it trickles down to, that's where I get it from. My mom didn't have that compassion or that. She loved me. I knew she loved me. She took care of me the best with her abilities, but I didn't have that connection or that bond, that we're talking about.
But I do know, because I know a little bit more of your story, I know that you had a sponsor who's kind of like a mentor, who was very, very nurturing, close, and important in your life. Can you maybe talk about her a little bit?
So she was like my second mom. Like, you look for something that you were missing all your life. And I had my mom, but she was always missing. So my mom passed away. And when I got clean, I got a sponsor. And she took on that mom role for me and really helped me see things. She was one of the ones that said that I could, do the domestic violence. Like, you'd be great at it. She inspired me to be an advocate for domestic violence. And it's funny because when I came to Homeboys, they offered DV groups, classes, training to me. And so I was like, yeah, okay, yes, I get to do it. My career's going to start. And I was so excited. But then they told me it was for batterers intervention. And that's for people that cause harm. And usually back, there's the stigma that it's all men. And so I was like, wait a minute. I can't do this. Like, don't you know who I am? I'm a victim. I'm a survivor. I'm not messing with them. And, when I took it back to my sponsor and I told her what it was about, she's like, oh, poor little girl. What's the best way to help another victim is by helping the person that causes harm. Hurt people. We all know that. And so the light bulb went off and I was like, you know what? I can do this. And it was funny because I was just telling my group today, it took me about a month before I stopped judging all the men. Before I was like, oh, he stabbed her. Yeah, he's lying. He did it, And then I realized, like, wow, they're just as broken as we are. They're just as broken and hurt as we are. They're missing something in their childhood that we were missing. And that's where my journey began at Homeboys to start doing domestic violence and anger management. I realized violence isn't the answer. Violence is not the answer.
Yeah, I think that's kind of your superpower. First of all, is your compassion and your capacity to call people out. I mean, I'm pretty strong, but you'll sometimes come into my class and you see what I don't see, and you just stand there unapologetically, and you're like, excuse me, no, right? But really not being. It's pretty amazing that you have the capacity not to judge. I think you're right. Hurt people, but a lot of times victims do not have the capacity to trust, and you are so trusting. And we hear a lot stories of the young girls that we work with, how they don't trust anybody. And I'm curious, how did you exercise that muscle of trusting? Because you're so good in the room with the perpetrators, with the victims, with the homies who've been incarcerated for very bad crimes or the ones for smaller crimes. And you see them as people, you communicate with them. What helped you trust again human beings and people and be able to walk the world the way you do?
I think everybody trusts everybody in the very beginning, right? It's when we lose the trust, and it's trying to get somebody to get back that trust, or trying to get somebody to find their trust again, and to trust people, right? My word is my word. I'm going to help you as much as I can. I'll jump backwards, forwards, sideways, up and down. If I can get it done, I'll get it done. I think it helps too that I tell my story. People don't look at me like, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. They know I'll tell my story, and I'll give them that piece. So they know that I come from where they come from, and things have happened to me too, and I've overcome it, I've been able to override it, and I'm able to trust people again. Trust is an odd thing, I think. When you have compassion, it's easy to trust people. And when you're able to not carry resentments and be able to take things for what they're worth. Like I don't judge. I try not to judge people. I can't say I don't judge people because we all do, but I try not to judge people, and I try to remember where I came from. You know, it's like walking in another person's shoes. You know, that empathy that we have. You know, I get it. I've been there. I know what you're talking about, and I've made it through. And I think that's what people see in me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not afraid to tell them who I am or where I came from. You know, like I'm nobody, but
No, that's not true. You are so somebody. You're not a nobody.
Thank you.
Don't say that about my friend.
But I mean to say, like in a group of people, I'm just another person. You know, I'm not special. I'm not gold. I'm not, you know, silver. I'm just another person trying to live life on life's terms, but in a productive manner. You know, like the street life didn't get me nowhere, but mayhem, bitterness, and chaos. And I don't want to live like that no more. I think it's funny because I found my peace, and now I don't want anybody to take that peace from me. I won't let anybody get that peace from me no more. And peace comes from within. You can't give it to me. She can't give it to me. You know, the choir can't give it to me. I have to give it to myself. So I have to really take a look at, what am I going to let bother me today? What am I going to...
So that, you know, it's really interesting. I really believe that we can't. First of all, you are very special. You're not gold, you're not silver, you're diamonds. I'd say you are definitely a diamond. I have learned so much just watching how you walk the world, how you own your story with zero shame, because there are multiple layers of shame that you could have, and you don't, and you say it as it is, and that's why you can be such a change maker. But, you know, I believe really strongly in the power of community. And I'm curious, and this is particular for people listening, what was the support that you needed for change to happen? So here's this young woman, she has 2 little kids, she's in a domestic violence situation, she's doing drugs. If I'm someone listening to Thursdays in Juvie and I'm thinking, I want to make a change in the world, I want to be of service, or I want to help, what were things that helped you? And it's a 2-part question. What are things that helped you when you were getting out of your situation? And what's advice that you would tell people who are listening? How can we together make this a better world and bring peace to people?
Compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Kinship. I think of Father G when I say kinship, you know. What worked for me was I found somebody that believed in me and seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. And that's hard to do. I have to give it a lot to, like my first steps getting here were through Narcotics Anonymous. And I have to give it to Narcotics Anonymous because when I first heard their Serenity Prayer, I thought, oh my God, I arrived. Like that prayer for me was amazing. Like it said everything I needed in a day. And I must have said that when I first learned that prayer, I must have said it 50 times a day to just calm my savage, angry bird self. It really opened my eyes, right? It really kind of opened my mind. Not even my eyes, my mind. It opened my mind and my heart. So those were the things that struck me as an awe moment. And then coming to Homeboys and seeing the love and support and the kinship that you have there, it's like you don't want to go anywhere else. It's like I found home. And I you know, to find people or to want to do this work, it's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, you say a lot of ugly stuff too, but you can't carry that. You know, somehow, I don't, you know, to be honest, I don't know how I do it. Like even my husband will be like, I don't know how you do it. I would have been mad already. I had an experience this weekend that my husband was like, I would already just like told that guy, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but you can't do that because you don't know what he's really going through. Mm-hmm. You don't know what he's, you know, they might not have told you the whole story because of the shame and guilt. You have to have that positive mindset. You have to be positive in an ugly, negative world. And, you know, like I tell my anger management clients all the time, you get a flat tire, what do? You start kicking the car, you're raising your hands, you're yelling, you're screaming, I'm late for work. But maybe God's doing for you what you couldn't do for yourself. Maybe there was going to be a car accident up the road and you would have hit somebody and then gone to prison for the rest of your life. I always have to change the negative stuff that I feel into something positive. I have to think of the what ifs. Like, what if I would have walked across the street and that car hit me? Because we don't know. We're not promised tomorrow. We don't know what's in store for us. So I guess that's kind of like the way I kind of see things, or I live my life and I see others. Like, what is that person really going through? I remember being in elementary school and getting thrown out of the classroom because I was, a class clown, or I was, a troubled child. Nobody said, Christy, what's going on with you? What do you need? What happened? Everybody said, you're a monster, get out of my class. You don't belong in here, you're going to be stupid for the rest of your life. You don't want to stay in here, get out. Nobody wanted to invest in Christy. So I see that today. Like, what is that person going through? Why is that person having a tantrum? We say it all the time at Homeboys. People get into arguments and then one person's getting louder than the other. Well, that the one person wants to be held back. They don't really want to fight.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get their point across. They just want to be seen, and whatever that may be, let's go talk in the room. What's going on with you? And then you find something deeper that's going on. It isn't even about the argument they were having with the other person. Yeah. It's something else.
I think for me, just listening to you, and I hope the people listening to this, the biggest takeaway is the what if. What if these kids who are incarcerated had a chance to go to college?
Yeah.
What if we gave them a job and they actually succeeded? What if they weren't judged for the crime that they did, but for the future that they could have? And the what ifs are so powerful. I love that. Instead of focusing on the negative, which there's so much negative that we can focus on what if? What if something great is happening? What if something great is about to happen? What if something wonderful is right across the street? So that's a really wonderful thing to take away from this. And you really rose up from very difficult circumstances, and you are such a rock star and such an inspiration. And you teach so many people not to be angry. And we know there's so many layers to domestic violence, and yet you peel them off and give women and men the victim's dignity and possibility, which is all of what Advot and what I am about, is creating possibility. And I am so incredibly grateful that you are here today. I am so grateful to call you my friend and my colleague. And what if we won the lottery, Christy, and we just went somewhere really fun, just you and me? That would be amazing.
Let's go.
So
I want to go to China.
Oh, let's go. So thank you for
that's my next adventure.
She also travels a lot. We didn't talk about that, but that's not connected. But thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your story, because telling stories is how we change the world. And I just appreciate every single word. So thank you for being here today. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. And I love you just as much as you love me. And I see you as my diamond in the rough also.
Thank you.
We shine together, Mama. I love you.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for choosing Thursdays in Juvie with Naomi Ackerman in partnership with Advot. We know that you have many choices to listen to, and we appreciate you giving us your time today. Time is precious, so we must pay attention to people who serve time. We hope that hearing these stories will help you see the youth Advot works with as the amazing humans they are, and not just case numbers. Did you enjoy the podcast? If so, please share it with your family, your friends, and colleagues. To learn more about Advot or to make a contribution, visit www.advot.org. Special thanks to the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory for their support in producing this season of Thursdays in Juvie. We hope you'll join us again, because the more we listen, the better we understand. And the better we understand, the more compassion we have. Compassion changes the world. Listening is the first step. In gratitude.